What if the best way to fight hunger wasn't just one single policy, but two, working together in perfect harmony? We're going to dive into some really fascinating research today that uncovers this super powerful combination in the fight against food insecurity. So let's see what the data actually shows.
And the scale of this problem it's just staggering. I mean, get this. In 2023 alone, 18 million households right here in the US were facing food insecurity. That is a huge, huge number, and it really just highlights what a stubborn challenge this is.
All right, so here's our plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the American hunger puzzle. Then we'll introduce the two main players in our story, a couple of key anti-poverty tools. From there, we'll ask the big question: how do they work together? We'll see what the data revealed, uncover this really interesting poverty connection, and then finally wrap up with the big policy takeaway.
Okay, first up, the American hunger puzzle. It's kind of strange, right? For one of the wealthiest nations on Earth, the U.S. has struggled with food insecurity for decades. So what do we actually mean when we say food insecurity?
Yeah, and the official definition here is really important. Food insecurity is not just about, missing a meal here and there. It's defined as when a household just doesn't have consistent access to enough food for everyone inside to live an active, healthy life. It's really this constant state of uncertainty.
So the big question is, how do you even begin to tackle a problem this big? Well, policymakers have a few tools in their toolbox, and today we're going to zero in on two really big ones that I bet you've heard of.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got the minimum wage. It's pretty simple, right? It's that floor, that minimum amount an employer legally has to pay per hour. The whole goal is to boost earnings for low-wage workers. Then, on the other hand, you have something called the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC. Now, this one's a little different. It's a tax credit that basically adds money to the paychecks of low-income working families. So it's like a bonus from the government to supplement what they earn. So you've got two pretty different approaches, but they're both trying to help the same group of people.
And this brings us to the absolute heart of the research. We know what these policies are supposed to do by themselves, but what happens when they overlap? What happens in a state that has both a higher minimum wage and a state EITC? Is there a secret power-up?
To put it another way, is 1 + 1 just 2, or could it actually be 3? I mean, do these things help each other? Do they create this synergy that's bigger than the sum of their parts when it comes to a family actually being able to put food on the table? That's the exact puzzle these researchers wanted to solve.
So what did the data say? The researchers dug into almost 20 years of information, all the way from 2001 to 2019. They looked at states that just raised their minimum wage, states that had an EITC, and, this is the key, states that had both. And what they found? Well, it was pretty striking.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. When the researchers just looked at states that only raised their minimum wage, so no state EITC in the picture, they found basically nothing. No statistically significant effect on food insecurity. It's like the minimum wage, on its own, needed a partner to really make a difference here.
But hold on, because that is only half the story. The second you look at states that also had an EITC, boom, the picture changes completely. In those states, just a $1 increase in the minimum wage was linked to a 6% drop in what's called very low food security. I mean, that's a huge difference. It's almost like the EITC is the key that unlocks the minimum wage's power.
And it gets even crazier. When they zoomed in on states with a really generous EITC benefit, that same $1 minimum wage hike was tied to an almost 10% drop in very low food security. So yeah, the synergy isn't just real, it's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we know what's happening, but the next big question is why? What's the secret sauce here? Why does this particular combination work so well? Well, the researchers found a pretty clear answer for that, too.
It all comes down to this really simple but powerful chain reaction. See, when you have a higher minimum wage and an EITC working together, they team up to lower the overall poverty rate. And it makes sense, right? When poverty goes down, families can suddenly afford the basics. And that leads directly to more food security.
And this wasn't just a hunch they had. They saw it in the numbers. The study actually confirmed that a $1 minimum wage increase in a state that also had an EITC led to a real, measurable drop in that state's poverty rate. So this is the connection. Poverty reduction is the bridge that links these two policies to less hunger.
All right, so let's bring it all home. What's the big takeaway from all of this? For anyone in policymaking, or really, for anyone who cares about this issue, the conclusion is, well, it's pretty clear and really compelling.
There's this great line from the conclusion of the research paper that just nails it.
This isn't about choosing one or the other. It's not minimum wage versus the EITC. The evidence is screaming that for the biggest bang for your buck, the answer is both. They work better together, they complement each other.
So really, the most important point is this. We might be looking at anti-poverty policies all wrong if we only think about them one at a time. What this study shows is that the true power of one tool can be, locked away until you pair it with the right partner. It's not about picking one silver bullet. It's about building an entire policy ecosystem.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question, doesn't it? If this kind of policy teamwork is so powerful against hunger, where else could we use it? What other huge, complex problems are out there where the solution isn't one single thing, but the right combination of things? It's a really powerful idea, and definitely one worth thinking about.